Hello and welcome to Learning Music with Pat. I'm going to start off today by showing you what a new instrument, at least it's new to me. This is a new recorder. It was given to me as a gift like about 3 days ago, so I haven't had it very long. And it's Korean made. And the brand name is Angel. It is an Angel recorder made in Korea. It's a very good recorder. And Angel is a good name. I do have another Angel instrument which I brought in, which I'm going to show you just so you can see the range of instruments that Angel makes. Now, this is a descant or a regular recorder, a melody. They're also called descants, and it plays quite well. And one of the features that it has, well, let me run up and down a scale so you can hear it. Did that last note I played? That is the low C, and it's the lowest note that recorders can play. And it comes in very easily. That's one of the really good features. Most of the instruments that I have, and I'm going to show you one, it's like a Casio and Yamaha, they break off in 3 joints. This is the foot joint right here. And this is also another Korean instrument. I brought it in, or it's an Asian instrument. I think it's Korean. You see, I have trouble playing the low C on many instruments. It's not because I don't know how to do it, but the thing is, this breaks off into 3 parts, which is very handy for cleaning purposes. I can take the top off as well, and so you have your 3 joints to the, generally speaking, 3 joints to the recorder. You have your head joint, which goes from this blue part up to the top. You have the body, which goes from this down to this blue area right here, and the rest of this is the foot joint. The low C, which is the lowest note that the recorder can play, is on the foot joint. Now, the advantage of being able to pull this apart in 3 parts, besides cleaning, is that you can adjust how the notes line up. You can adjust and make sure that this is in line with the body. With the other notes are all on the body, of course, and then this is a low C down here. And I have trouble doing it because of a hand injury that I had a few years ago while practicing on an alto, where I took this finger, and because I stretched it out too far, because the finger stretches were a little too much, but I thought I could do it, I pulled this whole finger out of the socket. I pulled it right out of the knuckle, so it wasn't even attached to the knuckle. Since that time, it's been very vulnerable to injury. And if I use one of these recorders, if I don't get this exactly right on this, it's very hard to get that low note, because I won't use a finger stretch, because if I stretch the fingers too much, that could pop out again. And the pain of it was off the wall. The crack, the sound of it, you could hear it all over the building. When I did it, I was practicing in my apartment, and all of a sudden I heard this massive, massive crack. And I realized it was my finger that was no longer in the socket where it was supposed to be. And I didn't cry out. I didn't seek medical attention. What I did at the time was I put my right hand over my left, and I held it there, figuring that maybe the heat of the left hand would help to ease it. And it did ease it, and it went back into place. But I don't dare to do much with it because it's very vulnerable to be having the same injury over again. So with these instruments, where you can change the lower foot to match what you want it to be in reference to the body, if you don't get it in exactly the right place, then I can't stretch or shouldn't stretch to try to play it. This is another Korean instrument. It's Asian, I believe it's Korean. It was a gift from a friend, and I use it a lot to demonstrate how you can pull the instrument apart. It's a student model. Some student has put stickers on it. I never took it off. It's part of the charm of it. But on this on this instrument that I am showing you, the foot joint is attached to the body, so it's one joint. This instrument just has two joints instead of one. It has the head joint from the top to this where this gold line is, and then the body extends into the foot, and it includes what would normally be the foot joint. And what I find that's good about it, that low C, I have no trouble in reaching it at all. And I don't have to stretch my hands. It's somehow been arranged so it just falls naturally in the right place, and you don't have to adjust it. In fact, you can't adjust it. This 2-unit is typical of a lot of recorders. A lot of really good recorders are like that. I brought in some of my Israeli. I have a couple of Israeli recorders. This is one of them. It's a gill, and it's made out of wood. Wooden recorders tend to be more expensive than plastics, but plastics play very well. But this is a gill made out of wood. It's from Israel, and it has that same feature of having the foot joint attached to the body so that it's only one joint instead of two. In fact, I have a second Israeli recorder that does the same thing. This is an Israeli recorder made out of peach. When I first got it, you could smell the wood. It was a cedar. I said peach, I meant cedar. And you could smell it, and it really had a very pleasant smell. You can see how the wood is striated in the back. It's all this natural wood. And then it has a plastic top. It's a gill, and it's also made in Israel. It plays very well. It has a softer tone, I think, because of the wood, but I have used it quite a bit. I haven't brought it in here very much. It's a softer tone than you normally would get with the plastics, but it's a very nice instrument. The other ones that I brought in was a sopranino. The sopranino does the same thing. Now, this is made in China or Japan. This is a Yamaha, so it'd be a Japanese make, and it plays very well, but it has that feature of no foot joint. It's all together. Now, what you have to realize on something that's this small, that you can't get a lot of extra holes in it. You can't get a lot of extra joints in it. The finger holes are really quite close together, so your fingers kind of rub up against each other when you're playing it. I don't play it often. I have played it. I've played it in orchestras. I don't play it very often because of the fact that it's very high-pitched. Remember, the shorter the tube, the higher the pitch. But it's a perfect little instrument. It plays perfectly well. It's probably the smallest professional instrument that you can get. It is quite a bit smaller than your regular instrument. You can see the difference in the size. But I also brought in one more, and it's another Angel. Angel makes all kinds of instruments. This is a tenor. This is one of my favorite instruments. It's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful instrument. And I was involved in a seminar, a music seminar, in which we had 3 or 4 orchestras that were nothing but recorders. There are orchestras that play nothing but recorders. They have enough recorders so that they can make a full orchestra. And the ranges are pretty good. They play in different ranges, but you've got the basses, the tenors, the altos, the sopranos, the sopraninos. You have all of those. The tone hole is in the back, just like any other recorder. I'm only going to play a couple of notes because of the finger stretches. I used to do solos on it, but I don't now because of the finger stretches are too much for my hands with arthritis and all of that. But listen to the tone. I was playing this and at a seminar, and I was in one of the orchestras, and I was the only one with a tenor. They had all kinds of recorders there. I was the only one that brought a tenor, and everybody was so excited to see it. Oh, it's a tenor, it's a real tenor. You have yourself a real tenor. And I says, yeah. But at any rate, there was a man that came up to me who was a recorder specialist, and he said, "This has to be the most beautiful instrument I have ever heard. The tone is exquisite." And I was preparing also in another situation. I was going to be doing some Christmas solos, and I was teaching at a school for fine arts, and so I was teaching music at the school for fine arts. And the director was going to do a Christmas concert. I was going to do some music, and I was using the tenor. And in the middle of our rehearsal, the piano player stopped and said, "Oh, my heart, my heart, my heart." And there was nothing wrong with her heart. She says, "The sound is so beautiful. I almost can't take it. It has a very human tenor sound. I think of all the instruments, it has the best sound in terms of quality and unusualness of tone is the tenor." And it is, as I said, one of my favorite instruments. And I have done a lot with it. But now, with the injury with my right hand, which I still can't do the finger stretches like I'd like, and of course with my age, arthritis, and all of that, I don't take the risk of doing it. But the tone is there. I can teach from it. It's a beautiful instrument, and it's an angel. This is an angel tenor. And I have another tenor, it's a Yamaha tenor. They sound exactly the same. I think it's just the quality of the size of the instrument and the size of the mouthpiece and the air going in it. They have almost identical sounds, and they're both very beautiful. So if I brought in the other one and said it's an angel tenor, you wouldn't know the difference in terms of my playing it. It happens to be a Yamaha. This one happens to be an angel. So it's the same company that has produced that instrument and this little angel here. The only difficulty I have with this one is the fact that when you get to the high notes, it'll go the G beautifully. It doesn't want to do A, B, or C. Now, when I do Handel's Messiah and some of the music, classical music that I play in concert, I have to have an instrument that can get those higher pitches. This one can get pretty high. And when I played it, the day that she gave it to me about 3 days ago, I was scheduled to do a solo on a recorder. And of course, I had my Yamahas and all of that with me. And I thought, wouldn't it be nice for her to hear that solo on the instrument that she just gave me without any rehearsal on the instrument? Now, the danger would be, since it is a foreign instrument, the thumb hole might be in a little different position, which would change the hand position of the notes in the front. If most of them, in fact, it's true of this one as well, the thumb hole in the back is pretty much opposite that first finger, which is this one right here. That's the way it is on the Yamahas. That's the way it is on the Casios and the other instruments that I have. But with some instruments that are made in foreign countries, they put that thumb hole down, and this automatically changes the position of what your left hand is doing. It doesn't change the right hand because your right hand is supportive. There's no hole for it to cover. So I decided I'd try it anyway without any rehearsal. It never missed a beat. It did everything perfectly. I never missed a note. The intonation was perfect. The loudness was perfect. It was in pitch with itself. It was absolutely beautiful, and everybody marveled at how well a recorder can do. We had some guests in. They were opera singers, and they're a part of an opera company in New York. Well, they came, and I was doing accompanying, and when they sang songs, I took the recorder and I accompanied them. I accompanied them on an organ setting on a keyboard, plus I took the recorders, and I kind of did the high descant harmonies to what they were singing, and it sounded really nice. And they came after me later, and they were surprised. They didn't think a recorder could do that. Now, I'm always saying the recorder is not a toy. It's a regular instrument. It plays a lot of beautiful music. It has a beautiful tone. It can play very difficult music. Orchestras can be formed with nothing but recorders, and they can cover the whole range of the music. And I do classical music all the time on recorders, and I arrange it myself. I do all my own music arranging. So once again, Now when I get to that high G, that's what I'm trying to get the A, and it doesn't want to come out clear. There it is. Now on the Messiah, on the Hallelujah chorus, it goes from an I at the end of it, it goes from a high A to a B. And I fudge the fingering for the B to get it to come out clearly, and don't use the regular recorder fingering for it. I make up my own sometimes. You have to fight for it. And when I play a Yamaha, it's no problem. It just goes up. It does what it's supposed to do. So those three higher notes are hard to get. They are possible to get, but you have to fudge it. And because I'm not used to the instrument, every instrument is individual, and it plays like a little differently than every other instrument. But on that solo that I did in church, I put it up to the high G. I knew that wouldn't be a problem. And I did descant harmonies to what the soloist, the opera singer, was singing. And it really sounded quite good, and everybody was surprised by that. So they're surprised that a recorder can do it, I think, you know. And a recorder can do almost anything that any other instrument can do. You just have to know how to get it to do it. And it's a beautiful instrument. So anyway, that's a new instrument for my collection, and the fact that the foot joint doesn't exist, it's a part of the body, is actually handy for me because automatically my injured fingers land at the right spot. There it is, the low C. A lot of times when you're playing a flute, it's the low notes that are hard to get, not the high ones. The flutes are geared to playing very, very high music. I mean, I do it all the time. You can just bring them up. They go an octave higher than what most recorders and most other woodwind instruments can do. Woodwind instruments can go the middle C, the mid-range C, the high C. The flute can get to the C above high C. And then there's another octave above that. The flute can't get it, but the pianos can because they're geared for it. So, but flutes can get very high notes. If you want to have difficulties, or if a student has difficulties, they're going to have difficulties playing the lower notes. It's harder to play the lower notes on the flute than it is a higher one. For one thing, the flutes require very little air on those low notes. And if you just overdo the air a little bit, you're going to get either an octave higher or you're not going to get the note at all. Now, if I take this instrument here and I'm playing my low D, I can play that high D. Now, I haven't done anything with the thumb hole. I'm playing a low D and giving it too much air. That's not how you play a high D in the flute. You play the high D with just that one finger down. But I can play a low note, and I can give it a little too much air, and it's going to bounce it up an octave. But it's not going to sound that good because it wasn't made to play that. Sometimes when I play a high D, instead of using the recorder fingerings, I use a flute fingering for a lower D. Here's a D, and I lift that finger, and that gives me one of the high Ds right there. And of course, there is a D above that, an octave above that. And the tone on some of these instruments are almost exact. So depending upon whether you're doing scale work or you're jumping notes or you're doing solos, whatever it is, sometimes I change the fingering because it makes it easier for me to play it or easier for anyone to play it. But if a person is playing only the recorder and they are not familiar with any of the other woodwind instruments, then of course they don't know how to do that. They don't know how to fudge a fingering unless I show them. But you have to show them how to do it right. So So you just choose, pick and choose what you want to do, and so forth. Well, we don't have too much time left, so I think what I'll do is I'll close it here, but I want to show you another instrument that I bought over the weekend on this next one. It's a keyboard, but it has some unusual qualities about it, and it's made for children, but I think it's pretty good for adults too. So I'm going to close it here, and please join me next time.